Hi, I'm Owen Canfield with the opinion page of The Oklahoman, sitting today with two young state senators here in Oklahoma. To my far left is State Senator David Holt, and next to me is Stephanie Bice, brand new state senator. Both represent different districts in the Oklahoma City area. Welcome to both of you. We're here today to talk about next week's Southern Republican Leadership Conference event. Huge event, a lot of the big names in the political world will be here, Republicans. But as part of that, both of you have been invited by GOPAC to address the conference, which is wonderful. You're among four young up-and-coming politicians from around the country, two from Oklahoma City, who will get to speak to the conference. And so I'd like to just ask you a little bit first about GOPAC, what they try to do, and then talk a little bit about what you hope to say to the conference next week. So David, we'll start with you.
Sure, yeah, so GOPAC, I was honored to get named to the national board last year. I actually took T.W. Shannon's seat. And they have a long history, going back to the late 70s, with the mission of educating and electing the next generation of Republican leaders. And they were probably most high profile around the time of '94 when Gingrich was the chair,
right,
and he became the speaker, and he kind of was using GOPAC as part of that Republican revolution. In later years, J.C. Watts, an Oklahoman, Frank Keating, an Oklahoman, have been the chairs of GOPAC. So there's actually some nice Oklahoma ties. So I've been on the board for a year, and was thrilled that they chose to stake out a claim at SRLC and then obviously invite us to do it. And I should say, so she doesn't have to, Senator Bice is this year's emerging leader out of Oklahoma for GOPAC, and that's obviously partly why she's joining us on the dais.
Great. Senator Bice was elected in November. That's a whole other story about your interest in politics to start with. We won't deal with that today, but maybe another time.
Sure.
GOPAC, I looked into it just a little bit. I think they try to train and help young new politicians, and sort of in a moderate, if you want to use that word, a moderate Republican way, trying to really try to get things done in your position. Is that an accurate way to describe it, as opposed to being
I think they're classic,
more on one end
classic
of the spectrum?
Conservatives, pro-business conservatives. Yeah,
right.
I mean they're focused
small government,
on free market, small government, those types of issues, which I think is what we are too.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, so you'll each get a chance to talk. The conference begins on Thursday, the 21st. You all will speak on Friday, the 22nd, correct?
That's correct.
So
Right after Jeb Bush, I think.
Oh, really?
That's what I heard.
Well, how do you follow that? You'll get the chance. Stephanie, let's ask you first. What do you hope to say in your 10 minutes or so, or however long they've given you to talk?
Well, I think the message that I'm going to convey is that I took on the opportunity to run for public office to really move the state forward and make it a better place for my daughters. I have two children, 14 and 10, and I want to make sure Oklahoma continues to keep those conservative values, but that we are also moving forward in a pro-business and economic development perspective. So some of the things that I want to talk about are some of the legislation that we've passed this year, including the prescription drug bill that was recently signed by the governor, which will require registration so we can hopefully curb the incident of prescription drug abuse in the state.
Right. Real problem.
Real problem. The other thing is texting while driving. It was a big debate, but I think it was one that we really needed to have. As a mother with a child that'll be driving soon, I think it's important to be able to say, hey, this is important. You shouldn't be doing this. It's a distraction, and we really want to keep our roads safe. Yep,
sure.
Absolutely.
Well, that was, we're getting off on a tangent here, but that was a nice win this year, I thought, in the legislature, because for the longest time it wasn't getting forwarded in any way. And this year they were able to pass it as a primary offense. So if you've got that phone in your hand, you can be pulled over strictly for that, which I think is going to be a great deterrent. But
yeah, by the way, her freshman colleague, Senator Yan, really pushed for that primary offense. Right. He had some powerful testimony about why it's so important. David, let's ask you, what do you hope what's your message next week to the SRLC? Yeah, I think in the limited time we're going to get, it might be like almost as long as this interview that we get to give our speech.
We can make this as long as you want.
I will want to make a point, I think, about, and it ties into my background as being Chief of Staff to Mayor Cornett here in Oklahoma City for 5 years. And here's this meeting. It's occurring in a city with a Republican mayor. It's nonpartisan government, but people know, and he's been a long time the president of the Republican mayors. There are very few Republican mayors. And yet, young people and all people are gravitating towards the cities. I mean, the demographics are obvious. The growth in cities across the country is continuous and it's not stopping. And yet we have a handful of Republican mayors out of the top 50 to 100 cities. Those are points I want to make because I don't think, other important things that people are saying about our party, about appealing to young people, appealing to minorities, but I also want them to think urban too, and stop ceding that level of government to Democrats, because ultimately the best Democrats like Rahm Emanuel, who have been successful as mayor, you know how they govern? Like Republicans. It's by taking on the unions, by limiting government, by lowering taxes, promoting business. That's what they do. Why are we letting, you know, Democrats do what we do best? And so that's the case I want to make to the people there.
What about the conference as a whole? I think it's a wonderful plum for the city to be able to get such an important event. You're talking about 8 or 10 or 12 perhaps potential Republican candidates for president are going to be in this city next week making their case.
It's a huge opportunity for Oklahoma City to really showcase all of the great things that we've done.
Right.
The MAPS projects over the years have created this amazing downtown area, and it'll be nice to have those outside folks coming to see what we have here in Oklahoma City.
Well, for sure, this would not have happened, could not have happened 15 or 20 years ago. In Oklahoma City.
We wouldn't have wanted it to.
Well,
we would have been embarrassed.
That's right. But there's that side of it too. But you're right. We could not have held it at this.
No one would have wanted to come either. You know, 5 years ago, you may recall, Owen, the city hosted the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and I think we all kind of thought that was the biggest political meeting this state's ever probably had, to have all of the nation's mayors. Well, I think this tops it, because now you're talking about a collection of presidential hopefuls in an open seat year. I mean, it's. You know, I'm corresponding with friends I have that are coming in, the New York Times political reporter. I mean, this is the place to be for politics for that weekend. Probably one of the premier events in the Republican primary this whole calendar year.
Right.
We've never had a debate. We haven't ever had a national convention. I mean, I think this is definitely the biggest political event the state's ever hosted.
Senator Bice, Senator Holt, thank you very much for coming in today. My pleasure.
Thanks for having us.